So you may be known as somebody who's very difficult to work with, and you're known for your ability to take dental practices and magically 10 times them in size overnight. You may be known as an enormously compassionate, empathetic father figure. You would be known for some competency. You have to pick what those things are and build your short list, and then make sure that you do everything strategically to reinforce the short list that you've decided on. So, for a number of years I did work for a guy by name, he doesn't do much anymore. His name is Dick Sutphen, S-U-T-P-H-E-N. And Dick's worth studying for a variety of reasons. One is, you see, he was a metaphysical community star for a number of years. And a past lives person. Big seminar once a year in Sedona where 500 people come, and they all lay on the floor and roll around and flop and vomit and stuff and have simultaneous past lives experiences and return to Atlantis, and they were all Napoleon. Or nobody, by the way, in their past life was ever like a beggar. They were all emperors and empresses and knights of the Round Table and queen of Atlantis and so forth. But anyway, so like Dick had a best-selling book, by the way, on New York Times list for a number of years called Past Lives, Future Loves, all about past life stuff, which our joke was that the title should have been Past Lives, Future Alimony, based upon the number of times that Dick was married. But anyway, so this is Dick's positioning. So Dick, for example, had to have long hair. Anything else would have been unacceptable for who he was. And he couldn't come in the room in a three-piece pinstripe suit and a tie. That would not be acceptable for who he was. Now, who Dick actually was an advertising copywriter and executive from New York who got tired of being and had three-piece pinstripe suits and ties, and that's pretty much all he ever wore while he was in New York, and short hair. But he got tired of being an advertising copywriter and went in search of a niche and a market and so forth, and he transformed himself into this larger-than-life character. But he had to make sure everything was congruent with the short list of things that he decided that he was going to be known as and known for. Hence the future alimony problem, because they kept marrying him thinking they were getting that thing they saw up on stage, and who sat up on the roof in the rain and wrote poetry. And then after about 3 months of discovering that, he was us, enormous disillusionment set in, and off we go to divorce court. But so you choose this thing, and then you build it. Now, if you don't consciously choose, and you don't consciously and strategically build it, by the way, you wind up with a reputation anyway. Okay? It's just that it gets written for you by others. And once it gets in place with a constituency, with a market, by the way, it's very hard to change. So you really want to give a lot of thought to what your short list ought to be. If we were taking the time to do workshop stuff today, I would put you all around tables, and for the next 15 minutes we'd sit there and write our short lists, and then we'd all compare our short lists and stuff. For the sake of time, I've chosen not to do that. But you ought to go home and do it. You ought to get somebody to help you, help each other do it. You ought to give some very serious thought to it. And then what you will find is there are ways that you get to strategically use the reputation you've designed. And so, by the way, part of designing it is deciding how you're going to strategically use it. I'll give you a couple of examples, which are on your next page. So, I have very carefully cultivated a reputation of not being a warm and fuzzy fellow. Okay? It is very deliberate on my part. That doesn't mean I'm hiding a warm and fuzzy fellow deep inside. That's not at all what I am telling you. Okay? But I have very carefully cultivated the reputation of not being this. Okay? There's a number of reasons for it. One, there are certain kinds of things that people are prone not to discuss with me, not to tell me because of that reputation. It's things I don't particularly like talking about or dealing with, but without that reputation, they would be telling me about them. The evidence is, when Carl and I were divorced, shortly after the divorce, people started to talk to me about things they never talked to me about before. That changed the reputation and gave them permission to now talk to me about their marital problems. Right? Well, I don't want to talk about their marital problems. I claim zero expertise in this category. It's actually inane to have the conversation. Okay? I am not the person to go get this advice from. I don't know who that person is, but I'm not it. But it sparked an enormous amount of these conversations that had never happened before. And it's gradually all stopped, and it doesn't happen now. Well, I did that like on purpose. I didn't want to have those kind of conversations. Okay? By not having the warm and fuzzy reputation, I get currency out of rather ordinary and mundane acts that otherwise you wouldn't. I understand very quickly, I'm not suggesting that you go out of here and adopt my short list. I am suggesting you got to decide on a short list for yourself, but I'm using some of my choices and decisions as an example. It has to be content matched, too. It would be harder to take this position if I was doing a lot of personal growth stuff rather than what I do for a living. But so, for example, because I'm not a warm and fuzzy person and have a reputation of not being a warm and fuzzy person and being all business and all bottom line and all hard-nosed and all tough and all that, a simple handwritten note from me acknowledging that their kid got accepted into college or their dog passed away or their whatever has far more impact than the same note from someone with a reputation of being a warm, fuzzy, involved in personal lives person. So the strategic use of my reputation lets me take ordinary and mundane acts and give them enormous significance in the relationship between me and my client. So I have a client, for example, this is a client off and on over the years who at times has given me a great deal of money, and then periods of time have gone by where they have given me no money. This client was diagnosed last year with throat cancer, some kind of throat cancer. Our relationship is not frequent enough that I even knew. So I heard several months after the fact through a third party. So at Christmas, we sent Christmas cards out. I jotted a handwritten note and, took the time to write a couple paragraphs and sent it to him. Now, I didn't do it to be manipulative or strategic. At this particular point in time, as I say, I don't need to do that anymore, actually, and I don't really want any more business from them, and I got all the business I wanted. That was the furthest thing from my mind. However, because it is so out of character with my reputation and with that relationship, I got the long-winded 5-page emotional letter back, but then like 2 weeks later, their company is calling and suddenly trying to give me large sums of money to come and do things, which hasn't happened in almost 3 years. Now, any number of people they deal with who have a different reputation could send him exactly the same note and it not have the same significance and not have the same result. So there are strategic uses for the things that you have in your reputation, because I very carefully limit endorsements and I'm kind of stingy with them and kind of picky about what I endorse. I get a lot of currency, for example, out of agreeing to write a blurb for somebody's book. Somebody who gives out blurbs for book covers, like giving out M&Ms on Halloween, who shall not be mentioned in this room, but you know, there are famous people who have a blurb on every book that was published last year. And the book could be pure crap, and they've written a blurb for it. Well, not only don't they understand, they're getting some free promotion, yes, but they're actually damaging their reputation with the general public. But beyond that, they have no power now out of giving the blurb to certain people, because everybody knows they give blurbs to everybody. So getting one from them is no big thing. I don't feel any sense of obligation when I get a blurb from that guy. I don't feel any need to be reciprocal when I get a blurb from that guy. It's like, so what? But there are certain people, you get a blurb from them, you feel like, oh man, I really owe the guy. What can I do for you? You know. So your reputation, as you build it and reinforce it, gives you currency, gives you the ability to have impact or not have impact with certain things that you do. For many years, Bill is much more generous than I about this. For many years, you old-timers will know, at my events, there weren't very many amenities. Like, I wasn't big on feeding people, you know. Now, Bill is much more generous about this, but also those of you that put on meetings know hotel contracts have changed over the years, and so it's relatively hard to get meeting space without committing to a certain amount of food service. So he's more generous than I, but some of the generosity is forcibly imposed. I didn't have to. But because I never did, every so often, I would, for example, spring the, okay, I've decided to buy lunch for everybody today, and we're all going to stay in the room, and I'm going to do an extra Q&A session on everybody. And I typically would do that immediately before a session where I or somebody else was going to ask everybody for money. Well, buying lunch for them, if you always buy lunch for them, and you're expected to buy lunch for them, well, it doesn't get you anything. Buying lunch for them when you never buy lunch for them, that gets you a lot. It's the same lunch. The only difference is the reputation of the person buying the lunch. Right? That's the only difference. So there's strategic uses for everything you put into your reputation. There's also the issue of forgiveness or condemnation. So just as the same act for two different people can have two profoundly different kinds of significance depending upon their reputations, the same act by two different people can be easily forgiven or jumped upon and turned into a big evil thing, totally depending upon the reputation of the person. The personal growth and religious leaders share the worst position in this in terms of bad behavior in general, because they lecture to everybody about good behavior all the time. Then when they engage in bad behavior, they're like burned at the stake for it. Right? If you don't lecture about good behavior to people, and in fact kind of have a reputation for some bad behavior, then the exact same act of bad behavior is water off a duck's back. Your constituency pretty much ignores it. So, depending upon your reputation, certain acts of behavior will have one kind of impact or another kind of impact. It's real important not to commit yourself to a reputation that is so in conflict with behavior of yours that is likely to be observed, seen, known about, or become public, that you are going to be severely condemned for it. A little checklist for you on the next page. Take care to build one of these things that, number one, you can live with and live in for a distance. All right? Simple example. Bad idea to have done this thing if I wasn't planning on keeping it. because I can't make it go away now until I quit. Too many photographs, too many videos, too many promotional pieces, too many bobbleheads, too many. It literally is part of the reputation. I'm known for it. So if I didn't really like it, growing the thing wasn't such a smart idea. Same thing with bigger issues. You got to build one that you can live with for a long period of time, and that gives you a little bit of wiggle room, and that does not set impossible standards that you can't stick to. So, for example, if you have a reputation for, boy, he's the guy who calls everybody back like within 30 minutes. Well, that might serve you well early. Can you sustain it over a period of time? Not if you're successful, because eventually there's more people calling you than you can call back. So now what happens? Now everybody's pissed off and aggravated. Okay. So you got to be able to live with it, and it can't set up impossible standards. You should develop one that facilitates influence, power, and control. So, for example, a reputation of somebody who is very relaxed, casual, tolerant, whatever happens, is not particularly useful in running coaching groups, because you will eventually have trouble keeping the children from hitting each other with the blocks. A reputation of someone who can occasionally fly off the handle and visibly be seen doing it, that's actually a little more useful, because now there's a little bit of, we really don't want to set him off going on. That will be magnetic to your constituency of choice. Okay. Gene Simmons has a reputation. George Will has a reputation. Neither would be particularly magnetic to the other's constituency. Right? So you have to think about, who is your market? What kind of person do they admire? Do they envy? Do they want to be around? Do they wish they were? Preferably something that has evergreen appeal. You know, not something that's going to be here today, gone tomorrow, that's really trendy, that's really short term. This is pretty important. Something that at its sum total is easy for people to grasp and remember. They need to be able to give an elevator speech for you. They need to be able to explain who you are and what you are to themselves and to others. Like short, not long. And that is difficult to undermine or attack. Ralph Nader is a populist, pretty consistent. He's kept it consistent over the years. It's difficult to undermine and attack. When he campaigns, he still stays in people's houses instead of hotels to save money. John Edwards has decided to run as a populist. Lots of luck. Like, he just built a 22,000 square foot house and clear cut the entire property in order to do it. It's going to be very hard for John Edwards to be the champion of the little minimum wage worker guy. That's not going to be easy to sustain. All right? And it's going to be very, very easy to go at. All you got to do is show the pictures of the 22,000 square foot house. Very easy to attack. All right? So you've got to take care about this. You've got to give a lot of conscious thought to it. You've got to think it through. You've got to arrive at decisions about what it's going to be and how you're going to use it. And then you've got to strive for constant congruency in a lot of different categories. What do you want? A break? Oh, I know. I'm getting there. I'm getting there. I'm getting there. I was just trying to find a logical place. And what's your problem? You can go in and out the door anytime you want to. Yeah, I mean, gee whiz. I mean, I didn't see them, you know. You can tell by the looks on their face when you've pressed them a little too far. So this is a real important piece of your puzzle. And it shouldn't be accident, shouldn't be happenstance, shouldn't be random. Should be very, very carefully thought through, purposeful, strategic. You need the short list as a reference point to make all of your other decisions. What am I going to say? What am I going to write? Who am I going to hang out with? Where am I going to go? What am I going to wear? What charity am I going to support? On and 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 on. When people ask you what books you're reading, your answer needs to be congruent with your reputation. It doesn't matter what you're reading, by the way, but the answer's got to be congruent with the reputation. If you rattle off a bunch of books that are completely incongruent with the reputation that you're trying to sustain, you mess people up, all right? And you undermine what it is that you're trying to do. So this picture you build over here, this short list you build over here, has to be a constantly used reference tool to govern every other decision you make about your business. And I guess you guys do need a break. Let's try and do it quickly, please. I'll tell you something. If I paid what you paid to be in this room, I'd be running to get back in. I wouldn't be strolling, baby. I'd be running. Just goes to show you can't take enough money from them. You know what I'm saying? It's just, you can't do it. The behavior's the same as if you were at a $300 seminar. All right? I mean, I'd be hustling. This is my favorite disdain for the marketplace cartoon. For those of you that can't read it, there's one, dinosaur talking all the rest of them. It says, the picture's pretty bleak, the world's climates are changing, the mammals are taking over, and we all have a brain about the size of a walnut. I keep that around to remind me what I'm dealing with. Okay. Begin by being known for something. You want to, settle on one great competency, one great characteristic, one great story, one great thing about you that you are going to leverage everything else off of. So, like in your case, it was, make a whole lot more money in the mortgage business, work less, deal with a certain type of customer. And then you start to fuzzy it, and you start to fuzzy it, and you start to fuzzy it. But you need to pick something. Almost everybody goes broad to narrow, narrow to broad, broad to narrow. It may be easier to look at this in your notebook than it is to look up on the screen. My old joke, it's self-explanatory, so we'll just move on. A lot of people go broad to narrow, back out to broad. They start narrow, they go narrow to broad. Actually, during the length of your career, you'll be moving from one to the other and back again and in and out. This is just sort of a quick little chart of me. And so at the very beginning, very broad. I mean, I started back with, hey, here's direct marketing for any business and any sales guy. Doesn't matter what you do, doesn't matter what business you're in, doesn't matter what the size is, I'm going to give you better marketing. All right? Then it got a little narrower to magnetic marketing, but mostly what I was known for almost a decade, if you quizzed people about it, it'd be the 3-step mail campaign, all right? And then it would be long copy. Well, those are both things pretty narrow. Then get broad again and get even broader, fuzzy the edges, start to be talking about entrepreneurial strategies, success strategies, and so forth. Now from there, back narrow again, starting to develop the marketing to the affluent category, which is at least as narrow as magnetic marketing was. I've been market niched, I've been non-market niched, gone from narrow to broad, from broad to narrow. You will do the same thing. If you look at Everybody's known for one thing, and then they fuzzy the edges. So if you look at our friend Trump, for example, he actually started pretty much being viewed as a negotiation guy under real estate. Now he's fuzzied the edges to wealth success strategies in general. Now he's fuzzying the edges to lifestyle issues in general. Dale Carnegie began purely about how to stand up and give a speech without throwing up. All right? That was Dale Carnegie's position in the marketplace. And so all their corporate clients, as soon as somebody got to the place in their corporate career that they had to be able to do a group presentation, they sent them to Dale Carnegie. Then Dale Carnegie leveraged it, got fuzzier and broader, got into sales, got into leadership. Dr. Phil is kind of funny, I think, actually, but I still find him doing weight loss amusing. But it's a quick example of, can anybody do it? I just pulled this out of DM News. Here's a guy that is an executive recruiter in the direct marketing industry, so meaning companies hire him to go find me a VP of this, thus, or so, right? Now has started a new coaching business for direct marketers seeking a job. So now he's got to take money from the other side. Now, of course, he doesn't know any better, so let's see here. They spent hours taking an individual through a proven multi-step process, and I'm getting $175 an hour, so ain't that terrific. By the way, he just told me, again, who is it? The
International Coach Federation.
Okay, which I assume is like some kind of NSA for coaches. Is that fair? They just hired Price Waterhouse to do a big income survey. Average annual income of everybody in their federation is $50,000. All right. So.
They sent this out.
Yeah, they sent it out. Well, remember, NSA did the same thing some years ago. NSA did the same thing. They sent out, like they're bragging about this, right? So, 2 of your clients exceeded their average. Yeah. Okay. Let's jump to. This is pretty important, so I can't skip it. Let's go to page 13. The key words are at the bottom. A lot of your work is done for you before you arrive on a scene or utter a single word because your reputation precedes you. Now, this is really important. Okay? One way or another, the heavy lifting should be done before you, quote, arrive on a scene. So before they come to you, before you get to them, somehow the heavy lifting ought to be done. The worst thing, I've done it 3 times in my entire life, twice early and once later, but under duress, and I was an idiot to do it, is going into a meeting of a bunch of people from a company who don't know you from Adam, and you are now there to pitch. Not a place you want to be. Not a place you want to be. Okay. So one way or another, you've got to have your reputation precede you. That may be the big box of stuff they have to read and listen to, the big thing they got to fill out. It may be the seminar they have to sit through before they're allowed to buy coaching, the CDs they have to listen to before they can have a conversation with you, the word of mouth, what other people have said about you, the champion in the company, your book. But you've got to construct a process that has your reputation precede you, so all the heavy lifting is done by the time you show up. We'll talk more about detail, but it's important to, at least get it conceptually. And so let me just jump to 16, because I'll give you an example of now a specific strategy. So this latest consulting gig, which Bill and I are doing jointly, its source was a person of influence in the company. So there's a Kennedy fan who begins the process of trying to convince his company that they should come to us. And then he gets another guy, and they get another guy, and then they go up the chain, right? Eventually, at some point, now somebody from the company contacts my office. Now, here's where, are we going to have the reputation precede, or are we going to do the heavy lifting, right? So what most people do, so let's take Dan Crick's example. Where are you? Okay, so last night at the IBA meeting, because he's starting to be known, he now has somebody calling him who wants him to privately coach them, and she's a fairly apparently successful and substantial coach in her field. And now the very worst thing in the world he can do is talk to her. That's premature, because it gives no opportunity for the heavy lifting to be done before he talks to her. The very best thing is he needs an intake procedure with some steps in it, so that by the time they do talk to you, that's like an accomplishment. Right? And the very process has set up greater emotional commitment, greater desire to get you, now that it's been so hard to get you. So we, for years, have had this sort of intake procedure at my office where they are told, go prepare, no less than 1 page, no more than 2 pages, explaining why it is you want to talk to them and what it is you need and what it is you want to do, and fax it in here. And then I'll forward it to him. And then he'll decide whether or not he's going to talk to you. And if he is going to talk to you, then I'll be back to you and we'll set up a phone appointment. Well, now some people, of course, will fear the person they're going to lose because they won't go through those steps. But you're better off moving on to the next person, if in fact you have enough deal flow, than you are trying to do the heavy lifting yourself. So now what happens, first of all, is the very fact that they now go back and they go through those steps, which are weird to them. So from the very beginning, I'm changing the way they normally behave and the way they normally get things done. Because normally, if they're thinking about buying something from somebody, that person jumps on them and tries to sell it to them. Right? I don't want to do that. I want to essentially do the opposite. So they've expressed an interest in buying something from me. Now I not want to sell it to them. And I want them to have to fight every step of the way to get the opportunity to be able to buy it. I want to put stuff in their hands. So now, okay, we do go back to them and they do get a phone appointment. But prior to the phone appointment now, the big box of stuff gets FedExed to them. With books and CDs and newsletters and relevant testimonial letters. And when we go through sample documents, I'm going to show you some of the correspondence from this particular situation so you get even a better feel for it. But so a relevant package of stuff, some of it the same you would send to everybody, some of it not the same you would send to everybody, arrives into their hands with instructions about what to pay attention to first, what to pay attention to second, what to look at before we get on the phone. So I have put my reputation in a box, and I have put it in their hands to do as much of the work as possible before I have the phone call. So I don't, on the phone call, have to have the conversation of, tell us the 12 reasons why we should hire you. Convince us to hire you. See, I don't want to have that phone conversation. The only phone conversation I want to have is them convincing me I should let them, or just the detailed conversation of when, where, and how much. Those are the only 2 conversations I want to have. So they get stuff. Right? Then, in this case, we made them double opt-in, so they got to come back and request the phone appointment a second time, and then finally they get the phone appointment. Well, by the time they're at the phone appointment, they are now a little frustrated. They're a little antsy and anxious. and they are pretty much determined they are going to get this guy if it's at all possible to get him, because they're already deeply emotionally committed to doing so. As opposed to me making it easy for them and then having to sell them hard. Now, in this particular case, they then needed buy-in from a whole group of people because this is a corporate client. So we had to go through this whole set of steps again. Right? So now they're going to put me in front of a group of people from their company who have to buy into this project. Well, I don't just go from talking to them to stand up in front of the group and pitch. I don't want to do that. I go from phone interview to full day with them to planning the day with the group, even writing in the CEO's voice the letter that is being sent out to everybody in the group who is coming to the meeting, pre-framing them for why they are at the meeting and what's going to happen and who Kennedy is. I get a book in all their hands with instructions that they should read it before the meeting. Yeah, some will, some won't, but better some than none. We get them on a list and fax them some information before the meeting. I exercise a lot of control over what happens. I just don't walk in, show up, and do a pitch meeting. I don't want it to be that. Right? I want the meeting to be framed as an explanation and question and answer session to determine whether or not it's appropriate for me to accept this project from them and work with them as a group. I don't want it framed about them deciding whether or not it's appropriate. It's about me deciding whether it's appropriate. Right? Coming for the candy, or are you coming to talk?
Question.
Okay, just a second. This, hey, Glazers, Bill, whoa, break. See, I would have got there. I had a break plan. No. No, it's not another break. So, you want the work done, if you turn to 14, what's most important here is you want the work done to the greatest degree possible before you arrive, right? So that they are, if you view them on a continuum of 1 to 10, this way, and 1 is, don't know guy from Adam, think he may have answer to my problem, might want to use him, to 10, absolutely determined to get him if it is at all possible to get him. We desperately need him and only need him. You damn sure want him past a 5. Okay? And by the way, it's not just about getting the sale. It's about everything that's going to happen after you get the sale. Because if you got the sale by selling, keeping control of them after the sale is going to be very difficult. If you got the sale by them selling you, then keeping control of them after the fact is going to be a lot easier. So this is not just about getting somebody into a coaching program. This is not just about getting somebody into a consulting contract. This is about what will color the relationship forever. How it starts has a lot to do with how it's going to go and how it's going to end. Okay. And the worst thing you can do is be an impatient, instinctive salesperson, which we all are, and want to jump on it too quick and sell it too hard, okay? Especially if you're good at it. So, you know, I can get a check out of a rock in a pay toilet. So my instinctive reaction is, as soon as somebody who might have a check in their pocket rears their head, I mean, I know how to knock them down and get the check in 5 minutes. But that doesn't mean that the relationship's going to be good after I get it. So I have to restrain my impulses and implement a process that gives me control over the client, not just the check from the client. Too many people care just about making the sale, not about what's going to happen after the sale. Okay? You can sell them by brute force. You can put them in coaching by brute force. You can get a consulting client by brute force. You can't keep them around for 10 years if you got them by brute force. That's what's important to know. Yes?
I'm wondering what you did in the meeting with the CEO that convinced him that you needed to write a letter in his voice and do this whole process to bring you back for a paid meeting with the group?
Well, the short answer is I told him. Okay? And so let me embellish the short answer first, and then I'll give you a blow-by-blow long answer. The short answer is important because my positioning from word go is they're there to be told what to do. And I tell them what to do, and they do it. So it's not like, gee, here's something that would be good to do, will you do it? It's here's what we're going to do, right? And it would be better if I wrote it than you write it, because I'm better at that than you are, so I'll write it. If there's something in it you don't like, we can talk about it. Okay? So all of it is about, I'm going to tell you what to do. Okay? And the real important thing to keep in mind about all that is, for the most part, again, that's really what everybody wants. They want certainty. They want somebody to tell them what to do. And it doesn't much matter whether they're making $10 million a year or 10 cents a year. It doesn't much make any difference. They're looking for somebody to tell them what to do. The longer answer to your question is, they're the ones who needed the group meeting. So we had a full day. So my normal procedure is the intake procedure I talked about. Ultimately, every new relationship begins with a paid day of consulting. And then at the end of the day, maybe something happens, maybe it doesn't, right? So they pay for the day of consulting, and in this case, they paid a premium because they wanted to be wedged in at a time I didn't want to wedge them in. And I forced them to come to where I was going to be on vacation anyway, except so I inconvenienced them and all of that. Okay? I did it, A, because I was going to be, that's all I had, and B, because inconveniencing them is a good thing to do. Like the worst thing to do is go to their office. Okay? That's like the worst thing to do. Okay? So now we have the day. So my normal reaction now at the end of the day is, okay, we get it. Will you do this for us, and how much does it cost for you to do this, right? So I get that, but then I get revealed to me that really, even though I'm in the room with the president, he really doesn't have the authority to actually do anything without buy-in from this group of franchise owners. Well, quite frankly, I'm immediately pissed off, okay? Because I didn't know that. That is like a new piece of information. And I was like planning on a contract. So I'm now like hot because I wedged them in, I spent a day with them, and actually this guy can't give me money. So, and I do my best work when I'm hot. I'm serious. My sales from in front of the room are always best when somebody really pisses me off right before I go do it. So, I mean, I'm like aggravated, you know, and I let it be known I'm aggravated, you know. I mean, so I ask whether or not he and his two cohorts that are with him came with their private parts or without their private parts. And I ask it in a not as nice way as I just said it. And they explain it's really not about that. It's corporate structure, and you know, if we don't get these guys to buy in, there's no point, in et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, I say, okay, you know, so what has to happen? Well, we got to put them all in a room, and you got to tell them what you just told us, right? So I say, I ain't happy about it, and I'll think about it, you know. So now they leave. And now they start bugging us, you know, to do this. So then I agree to do it for another fee. So they got to pay the day fee. I ain't coming and doing the pitch meeting for free.
Right.
And here's what has to happen before we do the pitch meeting. You're going to do this, you're going to do this, and you're going to do this. And they do this, and they do this, and they do this. Now, by the way, they ain't capable of doing much. So the other reason specifically to write the letter for him is because he's not capable of writing the letter that's going to have the effect that I want it to have. And by the time I explained to him what I wanted him to do, you know, we'd all be old and gray. Okay? And he doesn't even realize what it was. He just sent it. Okay? So it is really about just telling them what to do.
Right. Great, thanks.
Okay. Section 2. You are now on page 17. What we sell, as I said. What we don't sell, that everybody thinks we sell, is the top list. We don't actually sell credentials. Because make no mistake, they don't care about credentials. They don't even know what credentials mean. Half of this alphabet soup stuff people put after their name, nobody even knows what the devil it means except the people who are issuing the alphabet soup and the peers who are concerned about the alphabet soup. Nobody checks credentials. Nobody makes any decisions based on credentials. So Charlie's average case size at his dental practice is like $40,000. Right? A lot of cases are $70,000, $80,000, $90,000. Right? How many patients do you know of in the past, I don't know, 3 years who've actually gone and called the American Dental Academy or, somehow checked out your credentials to do what it is that you do? Anybody verbalize it to you?
So they check me out here.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the big deal. They check them out on the internet. Well, how do you check them out on the internet? You know what most people do? They go look at your own website. That's how they check you out on the internet. Okay. Nobody checks. They don't check. So how important is that to them? It's not. They're making that decision totally based on other criteria. Now, the same thing to do, of course, if you're about to spend, say, $80,000 on dentistry, would be to meticulously go get a second opinion and a third opinion, try and find who's the best dentist in the country at this, call 5 references, call the academy. That'd be the same thing to do. But if you think anybody's doing it, you're in dreamland. They're not buying expertise. They can't figure that out either ahead of time. No way to judge it. They're not actually buying services, nor do you want to sell services, and they're not buying even results. That's not what they're paying for. Because for the most part in advance, they can't predict them. They don't believe what you're promising them. At best, they're hoping. And in many cases, keeping them won't have much to do with results either. What they are really buying, what is driving the decision to get into this relationship with you, is your confidence, your certainty, and the control you exercise over them from the beginning. So that when you finally prescribe, okay, here's what you should have, and here's the fee for it, there are no questions. That's really what should happen. What should not happen is, well, can I take this out, and then how much would it be? That shouldn't happen. It should be, you prescribed it, here's the fee, and they say yes. That's what should happen. And that has everything to do with confidence, certainty, and control, and it has almost nothing to do with everything else. Which brain surgeon do you want? The guy who says to you, well, chances of success here, very hard to predict. I don't claim to be the best brain surgeon in the country. I work real hard at it. I study real hard. I kind of like the look of your x-rays. And I'll get you the best outcome I possibly can. Or you want the guy who says, you came to the right place. You could have gone to 500 hospitals. You're in the best hands possible. Relax. I'm going to drill your head open and have you as good as new by 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. You'll play the piano again. Henny Youngman, but I never played the piano. You'll play the piano. Right? Which brain surgeon do you want? Now, logically, here's what most people will tell you. Well, I want the guy who will tell me the truth. But that ain't who they buy from. No. They want the guy who is certain. Who is certain. Okay. There's an entire industry in this country that sells sports picks. So you pay money and they tell you who to bet on. They can't get you on the phone and analyze the upcoming game. Well, this could happen, that could happen. If it snows, that gives a 4-point advantage to these guys, and when it's all said and done, who's going to win the game? I don't know. No. They got to say, Virginia Tech's going to win the game, and they're going to win by 4.5 points, including a field goal in the last 2 minutes. Give me $5,000. Now, by the way, the good news is the retention of that client has very little to do with whether Virginia Tech wins the game or wins the game by 4.5 points or wins it with a field goal in the last quarter or the first quarter. It really has very little to do with that. You would think it has a lot to do with that, but it doesn't have much to do with that. But it starts with they want certainty. Here's how coaches and consultants then create self-sabotage. Number one, excessive concern, or actually any concern, over your credentials or your educational background. So there's a whole bunch of people in our field all hung up because they don't have an MBA, or they didn't go to college, or they didn't go to high school, or they barely got out of high school, or, you know, it took them 4 times to pass the GED, or whatever. Doesn't make any difference. Nobody cares except you. Nobody. And nobody's going to ask you. Okay? As long as you look like you got out, and you act like you got out, and you talk like you got out, nobody cares. A lot of people are all concerned about it, okay, over your experience or your lack thereof. Because coaching and consulting is more about asking questions and giving answers, and it is far more about common sense than it is about anything else. You got all the experience you need because you got common sense. And because all businesses are the same, by the way, and they are not different, you don't have to know squat about the particular business that you are helping in order to be of enormous help. Because most of the help you will be by asking questions, not by giving answers, and by dispensing common sense. Very simple observation. Right? So, I don't know what happened, and it's not even relevant what happened, but through a series of events, really before we're ready, Sydney Biddle-Barrows, who I'm developing a new consulting and coaching business with. And Sydney, raise your hand so everybody knows where you are. There you go. So the guy in New York that owns more restaurants in New York than anybody else, really, really successful restaurateur, has a property, a big theme restaurant that he's put a lot of money in, and it's got problems. And so possible Sydney's going to consult with him about fixing these problems. Now, to the best of my knowledge, Sydney's never run a restaurant. She's never owned a restaurant. And probably what she knows specifically about restaurants is how to order wine. Okay? But she goes and looks. And I'm listening on the phone as she's telling me what she's seen. And it's a long list of things that common sense tells you are wrong, are incongruent with the objectives that he stated for this restaurant. And it's a perfectly good list of things that need to be changed. Didn't require owning a restaurant, didn't require going to the Restaurant Management Institute, didn't require any of that. Just requires walking in with an open mind, an objective attitude about the place, some common sense, watching people and how they're reacting, and saying, why in the hell would they be doing that? Okay? Doesn't require much more than that. Then it will require asking a bunch of questions so that the guy kind of feels like he's figuring it out for himself, and then everybody's going to be happy. Okay? So it is not about lack of experience. You should worry if you have no common sense. That would be a legitimate problem. Okay? But lack of experience, no. Okay? Let's see. Every field in a 90-day period, I became the most in-demand consultant in the television infomercial industry. Never produced an infomercial. Misspelled infomercial. couldn't actually do anything physically, like run a camera or anything. If I touch it, it breaks. No previous TV experience, no previous movie industry experience. Not about that. It's about common sense. Right? Well, let's see. If there's no offer, that's probably not good because people are not going to run to their phones. Right? I mean, it's common sense. But people put TV shows together all the time with no offer. Right? Concerns over your financial status versus the client's. We're going to talk about that quite a bit. Well, my clients make more money than I do. How dare I tell them? We're going to talk about that in a second. Personal hang-ups about money, we're going to talk about that. And visible displays of weakness, we can't talk about that. So, let's jump to 20. Experience not required. Where am I? Lost my damn... Here we go. Okay. This is from one of the books you should read if you haven't. It's called Selling the Invisible. A good book about selling intangibles. Here's the big point. In most professional services, you are really not selling expertise because your expertise is assumed and because your prospect can't evaluate your expertise anyway. So it's assumed if you make it assumed, and he has no way to evaluate your expertise anyway until you actually deliver. And because most of the delivery does not revolve around expertise, it revolves around asking questions and it revolves around common sense, he'll be fine with the amount of expertise that you have. Here's my platinum list. Rory Fatt, largest coaching business in the restaurant industry, largest information marketing business in the restaurant industry. Has exactly the same qualifications Sydney does. Never owned a restaurant, never ran a restaurant, never managed a restaurant, never built a successful restaurant. I don't even think he ever worked in a restaurant. And I don't think he knows how to order the right wine. So actually, she's got a leg up. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, his actual career experience prior to starting Restaurant Marketing Systems was A, working as a salesman for a food service broker, calling on restaurants, and starting a business that delivered pre-cooked meals, frozen dinners to homes. Let's see, Bill and Steve Harrison, publicity experts. This year, $1 million in coaching people about how to make themselves famous. Nobody ever asks, how come you haven't made yourself famous? They have zero demonstrated expertise in making themselves famous. None. People get in their coaching groups because they want to get on Oprah. They ain't never been on Oprah. People get in their coaching groups because they want to get articles written about them in the Wall Street Journal. I don't think they've ever been written about in the Wall Street Journal. Not only does it matter, nobody asks. Remarkable. Ron Ipak, auto repair industry. Just like Rory, to the best of my knowledge, Ron has never owned an auto repair shop, never managed an auto repair shop, never run an auto repair shop. I don't know if he can repair a car or not, but that's kind of irrelevant. I believe when he started, he was in the windshield repair business. Okay? Number one guru to the auto repair industry. Ed O'Keefe, coaching programs in dentistry. Right? Whole bunch of dentists paying at different levels, $10,000 a year, $30,000 a year, $50,000 a year. Ed ain't a dentist. Never owned a practice, never ran a practice, never marketed a practice, never drilled a tooth. Presumably, the only expertise he has in dentistry is getting a tooth drilled by a dentist. It's like me with chiropractic and dentistry. I can't do either. So there's abundant evidence that it ain't the expertise. Okay. How dare you consult and coach people who are more successful than you are? Well, there's a whole bunch of reasons why. Because the value that you deliver has no relationship to and is not governed by the ratio of financial success between you and the client. So, for example, the thing most people think about is the one all the way at the bottom, specialized knowledge, and it is legit. So, I make a lot more money than my doctor. I make a lot more money than my CPA. I make a lot more money than the guy who's able to fix everything in my house. But that does not mean I am not delighted to give him everything he asks for, and little does he know considerably more because he can fix the washing machine. I don't know how to fix the washing machine. He will run over and light the pilot light when the wind blows it out. I don't know how to light the pilot light. I don't want to know how to light the pilot light. I have no passing interest in knowing how to light the pilot light as long as he will run over and light the pilot light. He has a piece of knowledge I do not have that makes him enormously valuable to me, even though he probably makes about $30,000 a year. See, it doesn't matter. Right? That's not what it's about. All these other values have nothing to do with how much you make versus how much they make. Here are all the values. One, fresh eyes. Just because you walk in and see it for the first time. And by that, I don't mean necessarily physically walking in. I mean, that is part of it. Sydney goes to a restaurant, she sees it for the first time, she's got fresh eyes. He's in it all the time. Okay? He's now not seeing all sorts of things he should be seeing. Bad things, good things, he don't see them. Any one of us can walk in and see them. Okay? But it doesn't have to be a physical place. It could be their ad, it could be their brochure, it could be their financial statement, it could be their management policies, whatever area in which you work, you have fresh eyes, they don't. So no matter how smart they are, no matter how successful they are, they become blind even though they can see. And we can walk in and we can see. Why on earth are you doing it this way? Why wouldn't you do it this way? Right? Dumb questions. There's enormous value in asking stupid questions. I mean, just dumb, simple questions to force them to think about what they are doing. I like to have in coaching groups, I like to have one dumb one. I like to have one that's like behind everybody else. Okay? Because he'll ask questions everybody else forgot. And it forces everybody to think about the basics again. Right? Forced thought. Just slowing them down long enough to get them to think. Right? That's a value we provide. Right? Consulting day, a lot of the value clients get out of a consulting day with me is their preparation. The smart ones, some of them say, I could have not come. Being forced to do all this preparation was enough. I already got 26 things I found I need to do. I don't need 26 more from you. Can we just go to lunch? You know? I mean, right? Forced thought. One of the things about coaching, okay, is just forcing them to get out of their business for 4 hours or 8 hours or 2 days, turn off the cell phone, not be interrupted and bothered all the time, and just think. They won't do it on their own. Right? I mean, you can teach them to do that, but they won't do it because you and I won't do it. We all know we should take 4 hours, you know, Earl Nightingale's old deal. Lock yourself in a room for an hour every morning with no resources, no nothing, and just think about how you could be of greater value and service and interest to your customers. Well, it's a great idea. How many people are going to do it? Nobody. Somebody's got to go lock them in a room. Hand them a pad and a pen and tell them you can't come out until you've written down 10 ideas about how to be of greater value and service and interest to your customers. And if I open a door in an hour and you don't have 10 ideas on the pad, I'm slamming the door and locking it for another hour. And eventually you're going to get hungry. Well, see, that's a coaching value that requires no expertise. Right? It requires a pad, a pen, and a key. Right? That's all it requires. But it's of enormous value. Make them defend their ideas. The more successful people are, the less people challenge them. So pretty soon, inevitably, they have a whole bunch of people sitting around who agree with everything they think of. no matter how dumb or useless or idiotic it may be. Just making them defend their ideas. Because when people around, or when everybody around you reinforces your own premises and ideas, that's like how you wind up in Iraq with no plan on what to do with it after you got it. Because you sat in a room with a whole bunch of people who reinforced your original premise and didn't force you to defend it. That's how you wind up there. So just forcing them, it's okay if they defend it and they're right, or they win the argument, or they refuse, but at least you made them think about it and argue it with somebody. Unearth ignored opportunities. That's sort of like fresh eyes. Very, very often you are going to be talking to somebody and they're going to tell you about the thing that's really good, that like leaps out at you. Okay? Again, it doesn't require enormous expertise because they'll tell it to you. But they're ignoring it for one reason or another. They either don't like it, or they think it's commonplace and routine, or whatever. But they'll tell it to you. You gotta say, well, hey, wait a minute. Tell me more about that thing. My day with Paul Serby, I didn't know we were going to find it, but it changed his whole business because he's talking about his dental practice, and he's got this, to him, crummy little thing he does on the side. Oh, yeah, so I'm asking, my question is, tell me all the ways you get money. Where's the money come from, right? Well, this much from root canals, and this much from this, and this much from... Oh, yeah, I got this extra $140,000 last year from this thing. What's that thing? Oh, it's this dental assistant school I got, and the staff runs it on Saturdays, and I don't go in. And all I do is run these little classified ads in a newspaper, and I don't do anything with it. And it's $140,000 net. And the whole practice is making about $150,000. All them other things. I'm going, well, let's talk even a little more about this. Tell me, like, more about this. Right? Like, if you paid any attention to it, like, could it be $280,000? And do other dentists know about this? And it happens over and over and over again. People got something in their business they're not paying attention to that's actually where all the money is. And you spot it. I see you. To influence the clients, associates, and employees. Speakers get that a lot, by the way, but coaches and consultants can too, where essentially you're getting paid to say the same thing that the client would say to them, but they'll pay attention to you, they won't pay attention to the client. Mm-hmm. It's just like if you babysit somebody's kids, you got no problems with just a little bit of authority getting the kid to eat vegetables, and then the parent's amazed because the kid hasn't eaten vegetables in a year. Why? Because you're not the parent. That's why. So a lot of times your value here is in the influence you have on their people, not necessarily on them. Sometimes you're getting paid to be used. There's value in you being used for political cover. Okay? I mean, there's a lot of clients getting things done in their business because this is what Dan said to do, that they would not get done if they couldn't say, this is what Dan said to do. So my value to them is them being able to say, this is what Dan said to do. My attorney's value to me is being able to put at the bottom of letters I send out, carbon copy, attorney name, law firm. I never send them the carbon copies. I don't want them to do anything. I just want to be able to put carbon copy, a big law firm at the bottom of the letter. That's value to me. I'm happy to give them a retainer for it and then get them to stay out of my way. All right? So for a lot of people, value is being able to say, well, that's what Dan said to do. Well, all right, we'll do it. If it was his idea, it had never happened. Well, that's value. It doesn't require validate their own premises and ideas as being right. Okay? That's a great value you can deliver. If they happen to be right, you encourage them, to go forward. Sometimes all they need is a little encouragement. Motivation, accountability we talked about, recognition. This is a big value that we provide. It's easy for you to provide. See, everybody, the more successful they are, the more likely it is that they are giving themselves their own gold stars and nobody else is giving them good gold stars. Okay? So the real estate agent in Tupelo who manages to stand up and give a speech, everybody tells him how fabulous he was. Trump goes and gives a speech. Nobody says anything to him afterwards because he's supposed to be fabulous. But he desperately wants somebody to tell him he was fabulous. And at some point in time, he probably paid some speech coach $50,000 to watch him and tell him he was fabulous. Tyson, one of the reasons he has no money is he used to have 4 full-time people who walked around behind him and their job was to say, "You're the man, Mike." All right? Now that's sort of an extreme version of this, but there's a lot of people looking for somebody to stand around and say, "You're the man, Mike." We provide them an environment where they get recognition. If it's in a coaching environment, the group gives them recognition. If it's in a consulting environment, they get recognition. My one-on-one calls. So part of my platinum program, I had 34 people. They all get 20 minutes on the phone with me privately, 8 months, 8 times during the year. By the way, I do them all in one day. And the last few people better be good. But I'd say 25% of those calls are recognition calls. 25% are recognition calls, meaning they're doing well. So they're calling to tell me how well they're doing and what smart thing they did and what success they just had, because who else they go to tell? They haven't got anybody else to tell. So they tell me. And I say, terrific. Genius. Brilliant. It's like the beer commercial. You have a beer commercial with them 2 little talking guys. What beer is that? You know, and the one says, "We're going to put them in a case." And the guy says, "Brilliant." Right? That's what I'm doing. I'm sitting there saying, "Brilliant. Send me a copy of that. I got to see it." Guy gets off the phone, feels great. Who else was going to do that for him? Nobody. Right? Wasn't going to get it at home, wasn't going to get it at the office, wasn't going to get it anywhere. Right? And some of them are accountability calls. They want somebody to ask them, "Did you do the thing you said you were going to do last month?" "No." "Why didn't you do it?" And yell at them a little. Right? So some of them are accountability calls. Hardly any of them are heavy lifting calls. "Oh, I got this terrible problem. What are the 412 ways I should fix it?" I don't have those calls. Right? A lot of it is this. Connections, putting people together. We're going to talk about that a little later. So what's important about this list is this is all value. There's only one thing on the whole list that is actually related to expertise, experience, specialized knowledge. Knowing how to do one thing well that they don't know how to do. You only need one thing, by the way. Yeah, that's all you need. And everybody in here knows how to do something pretty well. The rest of the values have nothing to do with that. Right? And these are the values that will keep people. Right? They may buy because of the last one and a perception of it, but these are what will keep them in the game. Yes?
You talked about how unnecessary it is really to have credentials. However, when you do have the credentials, when do you actually include them, or when would you be really sabotaging you by putting your stuff out there?
Well, first of all, you misquote me.
All right.
Okay? And it's an important distinction. I have not once today, and probably never, but certainly not today, said it is important to have credentials. I have actually said quite the opposite. Okay? It can be useful to have them, but I have never said it is important to have them. I said what is important to have is a carefully constructed reputation. Okay? There is a world of difference between the two. We're not just playing semantics. And it's really important not to be in that trap of credentials.
Right.
Okay? But it is important to construct a reputation. And then all the evidence you have that supports the reputation, put it out there. You can't overdo it. So if you've got 420 articles that have been published somewhere, send 420 articles. Sure. Don't send 42, right? If you got 500 testimonials, send all 500 of them. Don't send 50. You might want to highlight 50. You might want to. So you put it all out there. But It is more about your constructed reputation than it is, did you go to Harvard, not go to Harvard? Did you get an MBA, not get an MBA? Are you a member of this, that, or the other thing, or not a member of this, that, or the other thing? Those are credentials.
So if you have those, though, by coincidence, before this, do you include them? Or
Sure.
All right.
Yeah, they're no harm, no foul.
Okay.
At worst. And at best, they may be reassuring to somebody.
Because I noticed that there's chiropractors, for example, who are coaches who will put, Dr. So-and-so on there, which has nothing to do with business, but, they're a doctor of chiropractor.
Well, if they're coaching other chiropractors, then it's not essential, but it's helpful because they're a clannish group. See, what that panders to is my business is different, so you can't understand my business unless you're one of me. So Charlie panders to it. Okay, by the way, so this leads to another conversation of use whatever you got, okay? So, yeah, so he happens to be a successful dentist, right? So if we're pitching him to other dentists, we're saying, who you want as a coach? Some marketing guy who's never drilled a tooth, or a highly successful dentist who knows your experience. If I'm pitching Ed O'Keefe, I'm going, who do you want as a coach? Some dentist just like you, who's just as stupid as you are, who's been in the same incestuous environment you've been in all your life, or you want somebody with broad-based marketing knowledge who's made people succeed. So, you use what you got.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay? I was going to show you just a couple of, these are interesting examples of what people will pay for. This is, I've lost her first name. Her last name is Shaheen. She's president of a company. Her clients are CEOs who sneak her in. So testimonials are probably a problem. To teach them how to use their laptops. Because they don't want to admit to anybody around them that they don't know how to turn the damn thing on, but they've finally reached a point where they need to be able to use it. So all our business is word of mouth, just from one to the other. And she is a tech therapist, right, who helps frightened and dysfunctional CEOs establish a positive relationship with their laptops. Now, unfortunately, she's billing herself out at $300 an hour and thinking she's doing something. Little does she know what we know, right, that she could be just as easily collecting a $30,000 check for a program of tech therapy. But what's useful and important about it all, oh, here it is. I got it right on the other side. Her name's Jennifer Shaheen, E-Business Creations, which her main business was a normal tech training firm. And then she got into this thing on the side, and now it's the bigger business. So they bring her in to teach them to get them comfortable with their cell phones and their laptops. Because they don't like them, and they can't use them, and they hate them, and they can't go ask anybody because they can't admit they don't know how to use them, right? The point is, there's somebody to buy everything. Okay. So it could be comfort with a laptop, it could be comfort with a microwave, it could be comfort with being bald, and you could have a coaching program. And there's a bunch of people who will pay a lot of money for that. And again, her language is important. It's not so much just about teaching them how to use it, but making them feel good about it. So she's selling more than the technical competence. Let's jump over to page 25. Third big thing of the day is success in the field requires a willingness to play the game. Meaning, if you are absolutely determined to let people make buying and retention decisions on their own through logic based on the core values you deliver, you are not going to make a lot of money. You're going to have a lot of trouble keeping clients. And you're probably not going to have as much fun as you could have otherwise. if you view it as a game you are willing to play, and you view it all as a performance, first of all, you think of it that way, you'll think about it better. Then here's the criteria for success. One is the performance has to delight the audience. Now, again, that's all about their values, not yours. See, let's take coaching. You're going to, we put 10 billionaires in the group, you're going to have slow students and you're going to have champions, right? So, no matter what you do, billionaires, non-billionaires, you're going to have slow students and you're going to have champions. You are going to have somebody in coaching, a coaching group, or even in a consulting relationship who it seems to you isn't going anywhere. Like at the end of the year, they're in the same place they were before. Okay? But see, that's your value trying to be imposed on them that they should have gotten somewhere. That's not up to you. It isn't up to you to define it. It isn't up to you to impose it. It isn't up to you to judge them by it. It's only important that they are delighted. That's all that is important. Okay? So whatever values they got, if they're happy, that's all that is important. And different people are delighted by different things. I had somebody in a coaching group for 3 years. The only reason this person was there was to show off. That's it. 3 years, never asked a question. Stern, showing, brilliant. On to the next person. Good, it saves time for somebody else. I did the work less. I don't have to think as hard. He's delighted. Fine. That's what it's about. Okay? I wouldn't be delighted. It's just like I just said on the break. If I made $10,000 to be in a seminar, I'd be running back to the bathroom, tapping my watch. Hey, Kennedy, let's go. Let's rock and roll here. Okay? But if you guys want to stroll back, who am I to impose my value system on you? I can skip some pages, save voice. Don't matter to me. It's okay by me. Right? And it's not up to me to determine what's going to delight you, other than to make sure I try and delight everybody. So if you view it as performance, then its obligation is to delight the audience and enrich you. That's its two obligations. Right? Sort of everything else is gravy. Right? And people will get what they're going to get. So are you willing to play the game? Are you willing to manipulate people? Are you willing to take control of people? Are you willing to only entertain those who wish only to be entertained? You know, in other words, are you willing to crawl inside there and find out what it is that really is going to make him delighted and figure out a way to get it to him? And do it in a way that extracts the most amount of money from him, doesn't do him any harm, and hopefully does him good. That's a big asset. This is from, actually this is based on, it's pulled from a book called Thick Face, Black Heart, which if you haven't read it, you should. It is written by a Asian female business consultant. And this is a very good thing she identified, is that in our culture, the idea of deception is viewed very differently than in other cultures. In other cultures, it's a given that deception is a normal and routine and ordinary and expected and necessary part of any game. Here, we view it in a spiritual, emotional context that deception is evil. So we are unwilling to admit that we are engaged in it, and therefore we're handicapped in doing it really well. And so most people will immediately protest that they do not, well, I don't deceive people. I don't engage in deception. And so the last female to tell me that about business had implants and was wearing a push-up bra to show them off. Is that deception or is that not deception? Okay? I've always said, you know, conversation with Lee years ago, you know, she was telling me about the guy she was dating and what she was going through. And I said, you better stop that because eventually he's going to find out, like, who you really are. And I mean, you know, well, that's going to be a problem. You know, like, I'm going to cook for him. You're going to do what? What? You know? What, have you cooked 3 times in the last decade? I mean, and twice, yeah. I mean, it's just, but we all do it, don't we? We all put ourselves on our best behavior at certain times, but our best behavior is not our normal and continuous and constant behavior, so isn't that deception? The answer to the question, does this make me look fat? Who in here wishes to give a completely truthful, frank, and unvarnished answer? See, so it's not a question of do we engage in it. It's really a question of degrees and competency at it. But in a sense, all advertising, all sales, all marketing, all promotion has some degree of, some element of deception in it. So deception, manipulation, psychological control of people, it's what we do. Now it's just a question of are you going to do it really, really well or not? Early on, this is from a novel. It was sort of life-shaping stuff because it was very early. There's a fictional character badly portrayed in a TV series. It wasn't awful, but it wasn't good on A&E. Called our Nero Wolfe. And Nero Wolfe is a detective who is very fat and therefore doesn't leave his house if he can help it. So he solves mysteries without going anywhere. And he makes everybody come to him. And so every novel, and there's, I don't know, 80 of them before Rex Stout died, and they've written some since, which is deception in and of itself, by the way. A massive amount of fiction now is turned out by dead guys. The estate hires journeyman writers, puts them in a room, and they publish the stuff under the name of the dead guy. Robert Ludlum now is these books out. He's been dead for 6 years. There's Nero Wolfe novels out. Rex Stout's been dead for 25 years. Now, in fine print somewhere, it's disclosed. But if you're not really careful, you think you're buying a book written by Rex Stout. And you're buying the next installment in the Nero Wolfe series, which you are, but Rex has been dead for a long, long, long time. Anyway, so Nero Wolfe is this rather fat detective who likes gourmet food, so he has a cook. And he won't leave the house, and so everybody's got to come to him. And he putzes around every morning with his orchids on his roof in his greenhouse, so he absolutely won't see anybody before 11 o'clock. And the place can be on fire, and he won't come down in his elevator until precisely at 11 o'clock. And the world could be sitting there waiting for him. He ain't coming down until 11 o'clock. He doesn't like to work, so he only works when people, like, force him to work. And they have to throw money at him and cajole him and beg him and push him and prod him and nudge him in order to get him to work. And so on one of your pages, I won't bother you with it, but it's page 27. There's a block out of a Nero Wolfe book. So I read this stuff like in my teens. And I'm thinking, this guy's got it right. Right? This is exactly the way it ought to be, right? Totally contrary, of course, to my experience at the time, but I'm thinking, this is like what you should get to. is, and see, it's amusing to me that, like, the President of the United States treks over to Bosnia and wherever the hell he goes. I never have understood it, ever. I'm President of the United States, you're king of whatever, or president of some pissant country, and you want to talk to me, you're coming to the White House. I ain't leaving. I'm getting in there. 4 years from now, you can pry me out. In between, I ain't going anywhere. I'm certainly not flying into some dangerous place where people want to shoot me, protest. Why should I do that? I'm President of the United States, and we give money to everybody. So the only reason you're coming to see me is you want money. Why should I come see you? Right? I never have understood it. I mean, honest to God, I wouldn't leave for anything. I mean, go over to Congress to give a speech. Screw that. Let them all come over here and stand on the lawn. I'll give a speech. I ain't going over there. I never did. I've never gotten that. You know. So I read this Darrell Wolf stuff, and it's the same, of course, book after book after book after book after book. And so people are like putting $100,000 checks on the desk. And by the way, these books were written in the 50s. Putting $100,000 checks on the desk, and he's got to think about it overnight as to whether or not he's going to take it. You know, and they're all coming to him, and I'm thinking, that guy's got it right. And so that was like implanted in the, in the brain. There's a nonfiction guy, very famous detective. There's an autobiography of him. It's a great book. And the guy's name, and it's his real name, it's sort of like Roy Fatt, and his name being in the restaurant industry. Could you be better, right? But, I mean, it'd be really bad if you were like president of Nutrisystems. But as a guy in the restaurant field, Fat's good, right? So this guy's name is J.J. Arms, or Armes, if you pronounce it correctly. And what's cool is he has no arms. So he has artificial arms with hooks. Right? And he's a private detective. And he's really famous. He's done some big cases. Marlon Brando's kidnapping was a case of his, and so forth. And his autobiography is worth reading. But the best thing about reading it is, and I don't know if he's still in business because this is 10 years ago, but if you're going to hire him, the conversation has to start with $100,000 on the desk. And if you don't bring $100,000, there's no point coming. That's how the conversation starts. I'm thinking, that's a good way for a conversation to start. That's like a good rule, right? I mean, and that's really where all relationships begin with a paid day of consulting came from, right? Now, I didn't start with the 100,000, but that's where I got the concept from. I said, okay, so why should there be a free lunch? Why should there be a free meeting? Why should there be a free anything? Why doesn't everything start with somebody putting a check on a desk? Let's start there rather than where most people start. And so you're way ahead of where most people start if you just start there. Let's talk about managing expectations. Next thing. We'll jump over to 28. I'm going to show you, this is, again, Benton, Barton, Durston, and Osborne did the ads, so therefore they must be good. I'm going to show you, for those of you that haven't seen it, and for those of you who have seen it, it's fun anyway, but I'll take time tonight to show you the episode of the Penn and Teller bullshit show about bottled water. And it is a lesson in the power of managing expectations and what people then will accept as true and or acceptable to them based on expectations. And the example I've always used in marketing seminars is Southwest Airlines, because Southwest Airlines, of course, delivers the least. It's a god-awful experience from beginning to end. If you aren't there 2 hours before flight time, you know you're going to have the orange pass and you're going to be in the middle seat between two fat people eating buckets of chicken. That's how you're going to fly across the country. If you're flying across country, it's a bus. Southwest is oh yeah, Cleveland to Vegas, by way of Memphis, St. Louis, San Francisco, and Tuscaloosa, right? It's a Greyhound bus with wings, right? And pretty much half the people flying it should be on the Greyhound bus, would have been on a Greyhound bus if the Southwest ticket wasn't so cheap. Now, amenities are being taken away from the big airlines, but, for years, you got no amenities. You got no nothing. You got a crappy little seat. And the flight attendant sings. This is their deal, right? Year after year after year, they have the highest customer satisfaction ratings. And they deliver the least. If American Airlines treated you like Southwest treats you, you'd be burning down the terminal. Southwest does it, you're happy. Why? Because they manage your expectation to start with. Okay? They make no pretensions. They're very clear about what they are. In the early years, before anybody knew what they were, and they had to condition everybody that this was okay, that you're going to come, we're not going to assign a seat, you're going to stand in line, we're going to give you a plastic pass, we're going to call you by groups, you all stampede down the thing as a herd, elbow each other out of the way as best you can, get whatever seat you can fight for. We're going to give you a bag, even if you're flying across country, you're going to be on a plane for 7 hours, you're getting a bag of peanuts, 1 Coke, that's it, and we're going to get you there. When they first figured that out, this was like a new concept. So how did they sell it? It was very clear. They were very clear about what we are and what we aren't. But we're going to take off on time, and we're going to get you there on time. And by God, they do keep that promise. 18 people still standing up trying to put their shit away. They're rolling down a runway. No other airline does it. Every other airline farts around, try to get Martha's stuff put away. They're moving. Martha's on crutches, try to put, they don't care. Whoop, we're going. Okay? Best thing about it. Right? They got a promise. They keep the promise. It's pretty simple. They manage expectations. All right? So the lesson of Southwest is people will tolerate anything if their expectations are properly managed about what it is they are going to tolerate. That's lesson number 1 about managing expectations. Now, reputation, expectations, how it turns ordinary acts into... So Trump has a reputation for not wanting to shake hands. It's very well known. And so you don't shake hands with Donald Trump. You don't like to shake hands. So we had Donald Trump speak at a Jeff Kaller event and arranged for a little private session with a few of the speakers and me and Jeff and Ron LeGrand. And Trump walks in and voluntarily shakes hands with everybody. Right? Everybody's like blown away. They're still talking about it. 2 years ago, Trump shook my hand. Incredible. Well, kind of an ordinary act, don't you think? Nobody's mesmerized when you or I shake their hand, but because he set it up in advance, everybody's mesmerized. So he's in and out of there in 10 minutes, taking pictures like, heading for the bus, illegible autograph on ship. Everybody's happy, thrilled, positive word of mouth because he shook their hands. Because he set it up in advance that he don't shake hands. Expectations managed well to turn an ordinary act into an extraordinary act. The importance of the introduction. Any speaker will tell you that the results from the stage have an enormous amount to do with who introduces them and what that person says or doesn't say. All right? I can tell you, for example, all the years of the Peter Lowe events, here's an absolute known for me. If Peter emceed the event and introduced me versus his wife emceeing the event and introducing me, a 10% swing in my dollars per head in sales. No other variable. Okay? Same thing said. Made a difference who was saying it. Mm-hmm. Any speaker knows it. Well, you have an introduction one way or another to everything you do. Mm-hmm. So almost never do you start a seminar the way I started this seminar, of walking up and starting the seminar. I don't care if they've been to 500-year seminars. Somebody should introduce you. And if you're there to get money, somebody should introduce the introducer who introduces you. And one of them should be given testimony. Introduction matters, and those people can manage the expectations of what's going to happen better than you can. So there's a whole science to how happy people are with what they get, how controllable they are, and what they assume about what they are getting based on what they are told.